It looks like we're all here this morning. Good morning, morning.
That's it. I know
Okay.
Book is going to join us in a minute, but yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Okay. So, sorry, who's going to be joining us?
Book.
Oh,
Here he
okay.
is.
Okay.
Okay, we're missing Jay as well.
Sorry, everybody.
Let me ping Jay while we can get started though.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to put you into a breakout, and what I'd like you to do is have a conversation about what you learned online about the upfront contract. That's our topic for today. The first compartment in what we call the submarine is the bonding and rapport. We'll talk a little bit about that when we come back from the breakout. But to get us going and get us right into the material, because we're right in the upfront contract and pain questioning, which is what we're going to cover today, are like the heart and soul of all of this stuff. So I'd like to kick it off with a discussion in the breakout. And then after the breakout, we're going to come back. I'm going to ask you, okay, again, what did you discuss in your breakout regarding the upfront contract? Because I want to get a reading on where we are with our knowledge of the upfront contract, so we don't spend time with me at the whiteboard going over stuff that you've already picked up. We can take the upfront contract conversation to another level in terms of application and some of the more advanced perspective on it. But I need to get a read. It's like, the doctor doing a bit of an x-ray before, before getting into the prescription. Okay, so if that works for everybody, I'm going to send you the breakout. Any questions about the breakout objective? Everybody good?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, we'll split you up into two groups. And I'm going to give you like 3 minutes. This is going to be really quick, right? You either got through the material on the upfront contract or you didn't have a chance. And if you had a chance, then you can volunteer the kind of ideas or things that you picked up about the upfront contract.
You should always put time in your upfront contract.
Terry, before we start, I have a question for the team. So who went inside the training material? Who didn't, and who need help navigate through the different exercise, the exam per module? So again,
I'm up to pain. I finished the pain one.
Pain, Bruno, you seems. What about you, Janine? Do you feel that I should spend maybe 15 minutes with you to go through the portal and show you?
I'm up to. I just did the upfront contract, so I'm up to the module 3. I can start the 4 now.
Okay, so you went back and did the exam for the first session. Okay,
Yeah.
What about you, Louis-Fred?
I did everything, so I'm at I finished reverse cushioning yesterday.
Okay, great. Anyway, I'm there to support you guys. If you have any question, you're not sure. Again, we're all in the same boat, so more than happy to help you guys. So
We're all in the same
Maybe I would just
submarine.
have a quick question. Short of like, I was thinking yesterday about like getting is there like a document somewhere that would summarize like everything we've covered? Because like sometimes just to refresh your memory, like all the steps without having to go back to the material and not necessarily reading a whole book on it. Like kind of, I can go and capture screenshots, I guess, of all the pre-exam summary window that explains all the concept. But like, I think this thing is muscle memory. You have to read it up to a point where it becomes automatic. And some fine points, like how many steps are it, 4 or 5? Oh yes, it's 5, and these are the 5 steps. After a while, it's going to be good. But is there something somewhere, Danny or Terry, that we could refer back to as like a cheat sheet of sort? That
Yeah, sure. But it really depends on whether you want to get it intellectually and you know it. But if you really want to master it, you have to do it. Okay. So going back and rereading and memorizing and understanding it is only going to take you so far. There's going to be 4 levels that you're going to be experiencing, particularly when you get to the mastery. So you're right on. It takes it's muscle memory, right? Level 1 is where we know it. We understand. Okay. And I know from time to time, group to group, it's different and it's different shades and that sort of thing. But level 2 is where we believe in this stuff. We believe it will work. It's like we have to step out of the comfort zone to move beyond just reading the material and understanding and go, okay, I'm trained, I get it. That's different than actually doing it. So we want to get to level 4 where we do it. So there's level 3, and then level 4 is where we master it. Level 3 is we do it. But you know what? There's going to be stuff like for some people, I don't know if this group will be included in that. You seem to be pretty gung ho, but oftentimes with a group, there's like 20 or 30%, it could be up to 50%, depending on the group, who have a blockage. Guess what? They have a blockage right here because they're thinking, boy, if this upfront contract thing, if I do that, it's going to backfire. My prospects are going to think I'm too aggressive and all this other stuff, right? And so we take the idea of the upfront contract or pain questioning or pick whatever part of the selling system. And every one of us, it's natural, it's instinctive for us to understand it. And as we understand it, one of two things happens. We accept it and go, hey, that's good stuff. Or we get the other thought that is, oh shit, I'm not sure this would really work. Maybe it would work if you're selling hardware, but yeah, we're software. It's a different selling cycle. This doesn't really apply. And when we have those thoughts, it's really a code for, gee, I hope it really doesn't apply in software or in the SaaS model in that kind of a sales cycle, because I'm really concerned about what it would mean for me personally if it actually does work, because I'm not comfortable with it. And that's okay. That's completely natural. That's what change is all about, right? So when we change how we're selling from the way we're comfortable to a new way, there is always going to be some apprehension. I mean, if there's no apprehension, why aren't we doing it already, right? So it's natural. And so that's why this training is 2 hours at a time. And the focus of our training here on the video when we work together is to take what you established as a baseline knowledge by going through the material online before coming to the session. So you're already equipped with questions. Maybe you have some doubt about some aspect of the material or some question about it. And we use this session to move beyond just understanding and actually talk about this and how to apply it in the Nubic environment, as opposed to another different environment that might be more about manufacturing. Or if I'm working with a channel dealer, you know, how would I apply it? So again, yeah, I mean, you can go back and you can go into your Sandler Online, you can type in a question. If you want to get a quick summary or see some videos about any of the topics, pain questioning, reverse questioning, negative reverse questioning, upfront contract, bonding and rapport, just type it in. You're going to get videos, summaries, you're going to get different models to look at. But, you know, to create a summary document, I mean, what are we doing about notes? Are we taking any notes through the session? When we first started this, I said, hey, you know, it'd be a really good idea, and I should probably remind us, keep that hot list. As we're going through today's session, what are 1 or 2 things that you go, oh, wow, that's something I want to remember. That's really good, right? And so we put that on our hot list, and we keep that in a journal book, and we just start filling in the pages. And that becomes kind of like our summary of the things that really, you know, made sense to me personally versus someone else. So I mean, I don't want to shoot down your question, but
No. I mean,
really,
it's just that I'm like, I'm at L3. I would say I do it. Like yesterday, I did an upfront contract with a customer, and but it's just a matter of saying, like, before I shoot this out, like, do I have the basics covered of all the 4 points that I need to cover? Does that make sense? Kind of. And I think personally what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back on the site. I'm going to capture screenshots of the pre-exam screen that basically summarizes all the steps. And if I need to deep dive, I'll do it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that could work too.
It's just like I know over time, like iterative process, after a while, is going to become second nature. It's not quite yet, unfortunately, but that's okay.
So the other point too, which might help out, is that we have supporting tools. I'm going to introduce a few tools today. I'll introduce the Upfront Contract Builder. So you don't have to go back and refer to the training materials, right? Because you've got that knowledge. But now if you want to make it easier to put into action to make sure you don't forget a step or whatever, you can go into the tool. So the tools are there to support us in accelerating getting to that level 4 where we master it. Once we've mastered it, we probably don't need the training wheels. We probably don't need the tool as much anymore, right? So we'll introduce a few tools again today. Again, there's a tool in your material on the DISC model. It shows the quadrants, and it shows, how to identify what are the traits and characteristics of a D, I, S, or C. And then on the other page, it shows if I'm going to be communicating with a D, here's how I should communicate. If I'm going to communicate with an S, here's how I should communicate, right? So it's like a quick cheat sheet. So those things are kind of sprinkled all throughout. All right, so let's get into what came up in your groups in terms of upfront contract. What did you discover? What did you learn? What are some of the things of knowledge there at level 1 that we've got so far, so that I'm not repeating what you've already got and just boring people, and you go, hey, I already got this online. I don't need this. So what have you got? What's in your inventory of knowledge about upfront contract?
Well, I mean,
Anybody
it's in our group, we talked about like saying basically that we like familiar with the concept in a sense that we've seen Salesforce doing this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what I personally liked, and I used it a few times since then, and the team basically said, well, go and talk about it for the group, is basically the more of the formality or the checklist before you issue it. Like I did one yesterday with a customer, and one of the things that was always overlooking was the time aspect of things. And
Okay.
how many times have customer told you, well, within the meeting, it's either right or wrong. Like either they find you boring and they find a way of getting out of it. But if you
Yep.
say up front, like, we're going to be 90 minutes into this, are you guys good with this?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody decides that he jumps out at the end, you could basically read that he's not interested in what you're saying. So I like the formality. I like that it turns it into, like, first thing you talk about is what the customer is going to get out of this meeting, or what the prospect's going to get out of it.
Yep.
What you're trying to get out of, and the fact that at the end we discuss the next steps with them, and they see an exit, like if we don't achieve certain objectives. So I think it's
Sure.
it's a lesser risk for the customer to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, like, it did magic with the customers that I work with, but it did, I think, even more magic with the AEs at Salesforce or Financial Force that I work with. When I talk to them about, like, before we do a meeting, I talk to them about what my upfront contract with them is, like, let alone the prospect. This is what I'm expecting out of this. And I didn't get any pushback at all. If anything, they're kind of backing off and say, okay, he knows what he's doing, and
Yeah.
I'm going to let him do what he wants.
Yeah.
Because it's as opposed to getting tossed around by them and say, well,
Yeah.
this is what's going to happen and everything.
Yeah. So what would be one of the biggest benefits to a salesperson of structuring a really good upfront contract with a buyer, with a decision maker?
Yeah, you prevent gap expectations.
Control the sales process.
Control.
No mystification. I love that.
Mutual
No mutual
mystification.
mystification. Exactly. Somebody read the material. Yeah, for sure.
One of my favorite elements of it is the, dealing with your fears up front. I remember whenever I listened to Sandler tapes, I love that element of it, of literally being upfront with the client as well.
Yep. There's.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say, it brings predictability. Like, if you do this to all the interactions, like, it's probably one of the biggest takeaway, right, was to kind of do that at every steps or every stages, right? You can have more than one contract, through an opportunity cycle. I think that brings predictability.
Very good. Very good. Yep. Is there any aspect of the upfront contract that might have surprised you, or because you're kind of doing this already a little bit with Salesforce, and you've heard upfront contracts, if they're doing them well, you've heard it modeled, but the unsuspecting salesperson who has had no exposure to an upfront contract, is there one aspect of the upfront contract that might surprise the traditional kind of oriented salesperson?
I think it's.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No, Julien, you did your homework. So.
No, I to actually give your own expectations. I think, most salespeople will ask for the client's expectation, but, they perhaps don't disclose what they hope to gain out of the interaction. Or so when you put it out, and you gauge the prospect reaction, I think that's powerful.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. I think the second thing would be to offer an exit at the end of each.
Exactly.
And people don't like to empty their funnel, and they like to keep, like, oh, I'm going to keep him in case something happens. But it's it's unnerving, but at the same time, it's a good use of your time. So
yeah, interesting. You mentioned it's unnerving. Say some more about that. 'Cause
Well,
you're
I mean, in a
almost-
traditional world, I mean, you want to believe that somebody at some point is going to have like a spark in their brain and they're going to decide to buy what you're selling, but it's
right.
kidding yourself. So
Because you see, traditional salespeople are pushing for yes.
Mhm.
Okay. And in this process, it's 180-degree opposite. We're actually open to hearing no. We're open to hearing the negative. And why do you think once the typical salesperson understands the power of no, why do you think the no option has so much more power for us as salespeople?
well, it gives us back time.
Yeah, it's
to do
immediate.
Real
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Time to work on real opportunities.
work on real opportunities.
Well, it gives you back time.
Yep.
I mean, if you're trying to resurrect something, or not even resurrecting, but trying to make something work that has no future, you're just wasting time.
Exactly. So I'm going to draw the sales cycle like a funnel, a sideways funnel. This is the start line on the left. So when we start off, we don't know very much about this opportunity. We're having our first conversation with some decision makers or committee members inside the client environment. We got the lead passed over to us by Salesforce. There is not a lot of information that came with it. So we call them up, we book a meeting, we have that first conversation, right? And so I'm going to draw out what happens to the typical salesperson. So they're going in and they're focusing on moving a deal forward through the finish line back here. So the company, the buyer could be looking at 2 or 3 different options. And so we have option 1, option 2, and option 3. And so the traditional salesperson walks in, we'll say number 2, we'll say number 1 here in red is the traditional salesperson. So they come into it, they're having conversations, right? And through the course of the conversation, you know, it's going back and forth. And at some point in these conversations that the buyer is having with option 1, option 2, and option 3, they're sorting out in their own mind, in their committee, or single individual, but in your case, probably, you know, a bit of a committee involved. And they're sorting out in their own mind which one is going to pass through. Who are they going to end up working with? How many of us think, by the way, if we say, okay, this is the qualify phase, proposal, and close here at the back end, how many of us believe that the decision happens here on the far right at close? My belief, our belief is that people are making decisions all the way through this, and it's like the dating game. You know, I can date three people on the front end, but if I'm serious about a long-term relationship, every date I'm evaluating, do I keep moving forward with this person, or do I start to put some distance between me and that person and back away? And how do we know that a buyer is backing away from us in the buyer-seller dance or the dating game? What are some signals and some signs that give us an indication that maybe this is us and we're on the outside, we're not on the inside track? What would be some signals and some signs?
Silence.
Silence, exactly. You know, back here, they were really keen and interested. They really wanted our information. And so, boy, they would return phone calls, you know, same day, that sort of thing. But as the relationship keeps going, one of the signals that we can read is, hey, now it takes a week to get them to return my email. But back here, early in time, boy, we had a great, you know, back and forth going on. And so what's happening is that different options are being evaluated right from the very instant, right up at bonding and rapport is where it starts. And what we talked about with the bonding and rapport, if I put, bonding and rapport here, the traditional salesperson, what do they do to establish rapport? What are the things that they do when they meet that prospect for the first time? Some examples. What do they do?
Small talk.
Chit chat, small talk.
Chit chat,
talk about
small
kids,
talk. Yeah.
weather.
Right. And last session, what did we learn about doing that?
Not everybody is into that.
Not everybody's into that, right? And so they could all instantly at the rapport stage in the first couple of minutes cause the buyer to feel not okay. There's just, I had somebody come to talk about lawn maintenance yesterday, and just his style of communication, I was more conscious of it because we work with this stuff, but I was feeling, the way he was talking to me, it sounded condescending, like I've never fertilized my lawn. He's giving me shit because I didn't use the whipper around the stop sign and stuff. Yeah, but the line broke in my whipper and I don't have any more line in it. So when I cut the grass, I left some extra grass, like back off, right? And so we have a responsibility to make sure that our customers are always feeling okay with us. And when we encounter them, they flip back and forth from, this is neutral, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the okay side. And then down here we have negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And throughout the relationship and throughout the conversations, we want to keep them in the upper zone. So we could be starting here at neutral, and the traditional salesperson goofs up the bonding and rapport, and now they're at -2. But you guys at Nubik, using more advanced rapport techniques, you're now up here. So you're centering in now and you're aiming, right? If we were to take that aperture here at the end of the funnel, only one provider is going to make it through and win the business. What we're doing with upfront contract and rapport building and pain questioning is we're trying to determine if this is us here, number 3, how closely do we line up to make it through as quickly as possible, collapse the sales cycle, and win the business? So we're doing things all the way through each stage to make sure that they feel really much better about us, okay about us, than they do about the competition.
Terry, is that kind of like, if we look at that chart, one of the things that I wrote down in my hot takes when I was doing the thing was avoid disruptions. Would, like in the red line there, is that like each one of those bumps, or when they go silent, like is that that's what we mean by disruption in the sense of a sales cycle? Is any time that we're losing that momentum towards the close? Is that what they were trying to convey with that?
Yeah, you're talking about the upfront contract?
Yeah, one of the things I wrote was avoiding disruptions, and I didn't know what exactly that meant in the sense.
The upfront contract allows us to maintain momentum, right? And so if we're here, and today we're going to also, here's the upfront contract. By the way, that's in our sales cycle, but it's not in your competition sales cycle. So the upfront contract takes the future of what's going to happen next. So if the next thing is pain questioning, I'll put a P there for pain. If the next step is to ask them questions about their problems and challenges so that we can really determine from their point of view, what's the real underlying motivation? Why would they make this investment? How committed are they to close the gap between where they are now and where they want to be in terms of business process and the reasons why they would make this kind of an investment in CRM application? That's what we're going to find out when we do pain questioning. So before we go there and start to ask all those kind of questions, we want to talk about that up front. So we're going to take pain questioning and we're going to bring it in backwards here. We're going to bring it in up front and talk about it now. And then when we're finished the pain questioning, we'll have another upfront contract at the end of pain questioning. I'll change color so it stands out. Another upfront contract to go in and talk about the budget. What is their budget? What are they comfortable with in terms of investment? And when we finish that, we'll have another upfront contract that sets the stage with them to discover the decision-making process, DMP. So all the way through the entire submarine, every stage of the sales cycle, we always have an upfront contract. And so the upfront contract, we said before, brings us control here in the list on the left, and that's what it's doing. We maintain continuity. We eliminate any breaks in continuity by using an upfront contract to get agreement up front about what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. And again, we have an exit clause. And so like any good contract, we have to have a clause in the contract about how we can break the contract and exit the agreement. And so the most important part of the upfront contract is the exit clause. And so we agree up front here at this upfront contract, just before the pain conversation, we agree up front, let's ask and answer each other's questions. And at the end of our conversation, one of two things will happen. Let's agree up front that one of two outcomes will happen. One would be that one of us or both of us come to the conclusion, based on the information we shared with one another in answering questions, that it really would not be of value to us or to you to take this any further. And if that does happen, and there's a chance, there's a good likelihood that could happen. I just don't know enough about your situation and what you're looking to accomplish and whether you'd be a good fit for us at Newbic or whether we'd be a good fit for you. I just don't know yet. So we'll go through this conversation, we'll figure it out. So at the end, again, let's just be comfortable to call it for what it is, and maybe we don't need to talk again. Okay, so out of role play, it's our challenge as professionals now to take that upfront contract and perfect, master how we would frame up the exit clause in the upfront contract. Because it's that exit clause that helps them feel even more okay about us compared to the competition. Because the competition is pushing for yes. And I know that because I've been working with sales teams with Sandler now for 17 years. And traditional salespeople, when I introduce the strategy of going for no, they freak out. It's like, no, I've been raised by well-meaning authority figures in sales, bosses, coaches, trainers. It's my job to get them to say yes. It's my job to push them to the next step. So why would I ever tell them it's okay to say no? Now think about the behavior pattern that's going on by those salespeople who in their head, they feel that their mission, their job is to convince people. That's what selling's all about. Take no prisoners. Think about how they act and behave. And think about the reaction of the buyer to those kinds of salespeople. The buyers go, not okay. They hold the cards close to the vest. They don't disclose as much. So we want to be gentle with them, right? We want to be that doctor with really good bedside manner that allows the patient to be comfortable talking about, their issues as opposed to hiding them from the doctor. So this whole phase here of qualification, going through the pain, the budget conversation, understanding the decision-making process, helps us gather information so we can make a decision as to whether or not we put a scope of work together in a proposal. And so what we want to do, and the upfront contract allows us to do this, is figure out what's going to happen out in the future and bring it up to the present so that we can evaluate it in the present in real time.
Terry,
And know ahead of time whether or not we're going to win the deal. Go ahead.
as you've been talking, and not that this is awfully common, will we discuss if there's ever an opportunity, like a chance where we feel that there is no reason for us to proceed, but the client, and a prospective client, is not necessarily feeling like they should be out, like they,
Yep.
you know, will we discuss those types of situations?
Yep. Sure.
How to be graceful in those situations? Yeah.
In fact, you never abandon. We don't pull out. I'm glad you brought up that question, because I've had this happen. In fact, it happened a couple of weeks ago, where the sales team took what I said about the exit clause and giving the customer permission to end it. I mean, we're also saying that, you know, we need to hear certain information from you so that we can figure out whether or not we can even add value. And if we can't add value, you know, what would be the point of continuing the conversation, right? Because the likelihood that you would end up investing with us, if there's really no value in doing that, let's just call it for what it is. And so we would never, ever, at the end of a conversation, say, okay, I didn't like the information you shared with me, so I'm out. What we're going to do is, up front, we set it up like that, but we're really testing the customer, and we're establishing equal business stature. There's no desperation from us to have to get this deal. So we're setting we're setting the position up front that we have the ability to walk away from a deal if it's not a good deal. Now, when we establish that up front, that we have the ability, and we would likely walk away if it's not a good fit, how does that impact the okay or not okayness of a buyer as they're starting to develop a relationship with us? How does that statement, or that positioning, that upfront positioning, that there may or may not be a fit, and either one of us mutually can shut this down, we don't have to keep going forward. How does that impact the okayness or not okayness of our buyer in the relationship?
Should impact it positively in a big way.
Shoot, I'm glad you said that, right? Absolutely. And so we've done a really good job at building rapport, and we know that people trust, which is what rapport is all about. They trust people who they feel are like them. And so the more they can feel that we're like them, just based on how we communicate, and then we bring in the upfront contract, it's like an extra layer of protection for the prospect, so the prospect can feel safe when they disclose information to Nubik. And when they're disclosing information to a competitor, they feel less safe, and they feel threatened, because they are afraid that if they share too much information, the salespeople are going to use it against them to try to get them to, you know, go forward and all that sort of thing. So if we tell the prospect that, you know, they have full permission to pull the plug, and we do too, it's kind of like equal business stature, right? And those salespeople that are pushing for yes, they subordinate themselves. They see the buyer as superior, and they're trying to convince the buyer to pay them money and buy their solution. Whereas if we approach this equal business stature, that we are the professionals, we come at this with a level of objectivity. We want to make sure that if we're going to work together, we do the right job for our client. We're more of a consultant, a trusted advisor. And a trusted advisor is not trying to, you know, work the angles to try to get people to say yes, right?
Terry, can
It's-
the Vooks question, I think it happened often in our business. Can we do maybe a role play how you would address that, where again the prospect or sales force strongly believe, yeah, that it's all green light, but the reality when we do our upfront contract, the paying funnel realize that it's we don't have the information. Basically, we're
maybe
not
we,
really. So just
maybe
I'm
we,
gonna finish, Bruno.
sure.
So how would you address that with the prospect, saying that you see red light, yellow light, and then they see all green? How would you set level the expectation? You're not pulling out, but how do you address that? With the prospect, saying that based on what I'm hearing, I'm not seeing it. But how you say it in a polite way, or what's the Sandler way of addressing that?
Yeah.
That situation.
Okay, so let me, if I could, Danny, just play back what I think I heard to make sure I understand the scenario correctly first.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll kind of do a little bit of a role play situation.
Perfect.
Okay, so you get the lead from Salesforce, right? There's not a lot of information, but Salesforce thinks it's a hot lead. They give it to you, right?
Yep.
Okay, now we enter the customer environment. We're going to have a conversation for the first time with the customer. Fair?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So this is now where the power of the upfront contract is so important, because we have to set the stage that this is the first conversation, right? We don't really know anything about their situation, right? And so it would be reasonable once we get more information to be able to figure out whether or not this would be a good fit for either organization. So we need to put that up front before we even start the conversation, because if we get into the conversation without doing that and we find out that this is a dud, there's really it's not qualified, like the customer thinks it's like $10 a user per month or something like that, and they're totally mystified, right? And there's no way they have any budget to do anything, and we figure that out. Then once we go through that discovery process and we start to share a little bit of information with them and answer some questions, we can, with the upfront contract upfront, the chances and the likelihood that they're going to be more honest with us and tell us that there's no way they're going to do this, then we can go back to Salesforce and just explain that. And so here's the upfront contract at the very beginning, right? And so, I'm listening to their style and I'm matching their style. And by the way, when I say match their style, what do I mean by that?
Or you use the same words and
Similar words, yeah.
similar words and sentences they use, and
Yep.
tone of voice to a certain extent. Like if you're hyper with somebody who's very calm, that's not going to fly too
right.
well.
And you have different people, lots of people communicate different ways, right? You have people that communicate in a more sophisticated way, their choice of language and their tonality, they're more calm. I had one yesterday, and the first couple of minutes, it was a little bit rough, and I was trying to figure the guy out. And once I did, and I got him talking enough, then I just changed my speech pattern. I spoke more quickly, and I used more basic words. And you know what? The guy is a partner in a major excavating company in Ottawa, and he grew up driving a dump truck, right? I have great respect for him. He's a multimillionaire. He grew a fantastic business, but he's a basic guy. He just talk common sense. You don't need to be fancy. And then, a few days before, I'm talking to somebody at the National Research Council, and he's a professor at Carleton University, and he's all got the fancy language. So I got to elevate my language, right? Be more like them. Then they become more comfortable. So I do that. And then I move into the upfront contract. I say, look, thanks a lot for really checking out Salesforce. Really appreciate your interest. Tell me if this makes sense. I'm thinking, for a first conversation, we should probably spend maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes maximum just getting to know each other with the objective of really learning a little bit more about your situation, learning more about why you might be looking at an implementation like Salesforce. And, you know, at the end of our conversation, because I really don't know up front whether we can add any value to your business, I just don't know enough about what your objectives are. I'd like to learn more about that. Can we agree that, you know, maybe at 20 minutes in, let's just check with each other. How are we doing? Are my answers to your questions lining up with what you would want to hear to feel comfortable taking this forward? I need to make sure that the information that you're sharing with me lines up with what I need to hear to figure out whether we can add any value. And let's agree maybe at 20 past 10, in around there, let's just check in with each other and see whether we need the extra 10 minutes to figure out what to do next. Or maybe we just say, hey, maybe this isn't the right thing for either one of us. Does that sound like a plan? Are we good with that? Would that be a good agenda? So there's my upfront contract. So I've set up in advance permission to have a conversation at the end and get their conclusion as to whether they want to take it forward. So one of the signals to me that I've done a really, really good job in my initial pain conversation, and the guy yesterday, this is what happened. It worked out really well at the end. It was a 15-minute conversation. And at the end, he said, okay, so what do you think? He's trying to close me. He says, what do you think? Should we have a next step? I said, well, that would be up to you. What you shared with me, and I summarized, is that you're really good as one of the partners in the company. Your success rate is really high, but your biggest frustration is that you've got a group of 6 estimators who are doing estimates on multi-million-dollar deals, and all I do is reply to RFPs and bids and hope for the best. Now, if your intention, you and your partners, is to replicate what you do with your estimators, then there's some potential that we should probably have another conversation. He said, okay, let me talk to my partners about that, and I'll get back to you in 2 days. I said, okay. So I'm not pulling out, but I said clearly, you sound like you know what you're doing. There's no reason for you as one of the business partners to be involved in training. You're scoring 95, 100%. You walk away from deals every day. I can't add any value. And so what I want to hear at the end of my conversation is the precise scenario where they don't want to quit. They want to stay in, right? Back to a question that I think Avuk asked, or somebody asked, what do I do? How do I exit gracefully if I don't think there's a fit? Look, if they think there's a fit and you don't, it's perfect, because now you're set up to get them to convince you that there is, and you can ask more questions and act confused, and right?
But the typical situation is they want to stay in because they like the solution, but they can't afford it. And then they will have us do all the dance so that they can learn. But at the end of the day, they're gonna buy, they're gonna postpone or buy a subset. So again, they want to engage. They want to get all the information. They want to get this free consulting. Sometimes we recognize it.
Yeah.
But how do we address that?
So when they're coming into a conversation, they're looking for information, fair? And so how many of these traditional salespeople who have trained the buyers have created an expectation that the salesperson will provide information and do a presentation? And so I'm here, I want to consume information. It's like going to the Baskin Robbins where I can go in and I can taste all the different flavors. So give me a little spoon and I'll sample all the different flavors. It's like, you're a salesperson. You're supposed to feed me information. That's what you're paid to do. So I show up at the window of your company and it's my turn. Give me free information. But we're not going to do that. Our mentality in our head is that if you want information from us, you have to pay a price. So what do you think the price is that they have to pay to get information from us?
Agree on the upfront contract.
Yeah, they have to provide us information, and that's what we're looking for in the upfront contract. The upfront contract is all about providing us information, and we'll give them a little bit of information too. And the ratio actually here early is 70-30. So 70% of the information is coming from them. 30% of the information going to them is coming from us going to them. And as we go down through the sales cycle to the far end where we actually present the solution and what it's going to look like and proposal and all that, it switches and it's now 30-70, where 70% of the information is coming from us and 30% from them. So it flips. So the upfront contract is establishing that upfront and getting them to agree that that's okay.
But I think there's multiple ways that you could exit, or you could, I mean, budget is one of them. Like if you talk to someone who's totally unrealistic about what they want, like you could say like, can you afford like, I don't know, 40, 50, 25,000 for this? And if they say upfront that they can't, I mean, they're going to disqualify themselves pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
In other cases, like I had one 2-3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And we had this 15-minute qualification call. And at the end of the call, I said, I hear what you're saying, but unless you solve this particular issue, and that's going to cost you money outside of what Nubik needs to do. And I use like $80,000 as an example. Are you willing to pay $80,000 to your ERP supplier to solve this so we can continue talking? And he said, I'll get back to you. And he was on the phone and he was chasing me afterwards. So which was really refreshing in the sense that I sent him to do some homework. Yeah. And he's back at the table saying like, unless you do this, I'm not going to be able to deliver you a successful project.
All right, well, what's the definition of success? What's the problem that they're experiencing right now that would justify investing $80,000? What are they trying to solve?
Oh, they were just trying to, they wanted to implement a CRM, but provide like lots of information coming from their ERP, like how much customers have bought of a given product so that their salespeople can do more targeted sales and stuff. But I know that the ERP they're using is very difficult to deal with. So I said, unless you do this, there's no way we can make this work.
Okay. Well,
and it was the CEO, like the CEO said, okay, let me run with this. And he gave me, so it was more of a, I wouldn't say for the first time, but it was interesting to see that it was more of a one-to-one discussion with him as opposed to me trying to please him at all costs so that he would buy whatever we have.
Right. So, it's a business conversation, right?
It was.
And so what I'm curious about is, okay, so they wanted to be able to extract more information from their ERP. And the reason that they wanted to do that was to be able to enable their salespeople to be more targeted in their approach. Fair? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if the salespeople can be more targeted in their approach, what are they looking for in the way of a result from that?
Well, right. the thing is, he didn't come to the table saying, I need my ERP connected to this. He explained what he needs to provide as information to his salespeople because he wants to increase penetration in his existing accounts. So I said, if you want to do this, we need to get this information. And we know for a fact that this is going to be complicated because we've dealt with those people before. So unless you solve this, I'm not going to be able to help you.
Yeah, fair enough. But how important is increasing penetration of his sales team in these accounts? How important is that to him?
Well, that was his number one reason for coming to us.
Okay, that was his number one reason. But when you think about all the other priorities he's dealing with, where does this stack up? Where does this rank?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, we had that conversation in terms of like how important that was and the reason why they would do this and how much money he was willing to invest in this. So.
Okay, and where did that lead?
Well, we got an upfront contract for discovery session, which we did afterwards. And after the end of the first discovery, we said we don't have enough information. We need to do a second one, and he says yes, sir.
Oh, very good. Okay.
So it was interesting.
Yeah. So I wanted to flush that out a little bit because I wanted to socialize this concept with you guys. So if we have again, I'm going to do this in red for the traditional salesperson. Okay. The traditional salesperson takes the 80,000, 80K, and in the mind of the buyer, they have to justify it, right? And so on one side of the scale, this is a scale. On one side of the scale, we have the budget or the investment, 80K. And what does the traditional salesperson do? They put a lot of stuff, features and benefits, freebies, you know, to justify the investment, which is what you were saying is, you know, rather than try to be his friend and try to justify the 80,000 and, you know, and all that, you took a different path, right? And the path that you took, which is the right path, is instead of putting stuff on there, you did this. And by the way, if we make this a bubble, and to justify that, we need a big bubble here of stuff to outweigh the investment. But with this process, if we take a pain-based approach to this, and we put pain over here, just a little bit of pain would be required in order to justify that 80K. Actually, let me move the fulcrum point to make this a little bit more graphically correct.
But just to be more precise, like the 80K was not even for us. It was for him to pay a third party that would be involved in this,
no, I understand.
on top of our costs plus the licenses. So I said, like, we're looking at like maybe 100 grand for us, 80 for these guys, licenses.
Yeah.
Should we keep on talking? And he said, yes, he picked up the phone and solved the issue.
Okay, very good.
So.
Yeah, whether it's 80 or 120, I'm just using a number to illustrate.
No, but the point was that it was not even us. Like, he was like, talk to your supplier because you need to solve this thing that can cost you upwards of 80K. Otherwise, we can't keep on talking.
Yeah. So we're always looking for business justification, but there's another part of the justification for any investment. And so if we're out at having a budget conversation about investment out here in the middle of our qualification, if we have not done a good job in the pain qualification before having a conversation about investment, if we haven't done a good job about the pain qualification, what do you think will happen when we talk about investment?
You're going to find it too expensive.
There's no justification for it.
Yeah. And so we have to do a really good pain conversation to drill down, you know, what challenge are they having right now that's not going well for them? And in his case, you know, part of it was that he wanted his people to be able to take a more targeted approach in order to grow the business. But again, where is that on the list of priorities? How important is it? How committed is the CEO to make that happen? And why are they that committed? Has he made commitments to the investors that by the end of 2021, they will have grown the business by 38%? And the strategy to get there is to really go deeper in a more targeted approach. I mean, you know, when we start to get them to explain that, and we challenge them on it in a nice way, and we give them opportunities to admit that, well, maybe it's not all that important. Once they commit that whether we work with Nubik or we work with someone else, we have to hit that number. And I've had CEOs say, if I don't hit the number, I won't be here next year. So it's happening. Are you on board to help us or not, right? And that's perfect, because then I said, well, do you want us on board? If you want us on board, we're here for you, right? But let me share with you what's going to be involved, and then we move to budget. And I'd even say, you know, with all due respect, Mr. CEO, everybody says that. But when we talk about what's going to be required to implement and actually achieve the outcome, then maybe it isn't such a high priority anymore. So would this be a good time maybe to talk a little bit about the investment side in terms of time, money, resources, perceived risk, what's involved from a change point of view? Make sure we're both on the same page. Because the last thing I'd want to have happen is we get all the way to the end of the process, and now you and your team discover that there's all these other elements involved, and you wished you had known that sooner. And I would wish that you had known that sooner. So again, I'm making it very easy for them to be open and honest with me, so that they always have the impression that I'm not going to try to sell you. It's really a mutual discovery. It's joint, right?
And I think, guys, in our process, that at this stage of the pain, it's really a business discussion. So it's not, we would involve at this point the BSA to dig into the technical point and then really all the technical detail. It's really at the business level, investment level, business priority, and then this is really important.
I had another software company say to me last week, one of the salespeople said, for me, the pain conversation is where we figure out what the solution should be. Well, maybe based on some of the information they share with you, but that's not the objective of the pain conversation. The objective of the pain conversation is to test them on their level of frustration, challenge, excitement, whatever is going to motivate them to cut the check and make whatever investment is required. Our objective with the pain conversation is to test and validate their level of commitment. Once we have that, and we then cover off whether or not they're willing to invest to get rid of that challenge, and then we understand who is going to be impacted by the decision, who's going to have some say in the investment, and we work our way into conversations with those people, then we're ready to bring in our technical people once we have an upfront commitment from them that if we can develop the right technical solution that they believe meets the expectation, that we'd have a deal, we have an upfront agreement. We've already cleared, we're looking at 150K, we're looking at 300K, everybody understands that. It'll be a 3-month implementation. Here's what we're gonna need in the way of resources. If we would decide to move forward together, everybody's on the same page, yeah. Okay, now, once we've got that upfront agreement, now let's do the more technical level of qualification. And let's avoid bringing technical people in prematurely and creating the same sins as Salesforce does. They bring you guys in, they haven't even qualified it like on a scale of 2 out of 10. It's a raw lead, and basically here's a name and a phone number of somebody who called us, and they have potential for X number of seats. I mean, I don't know, what kind of information are you getting, generally speaking, on your leads from Salesforce?
Oh, sometimes it's good, but sometimes they create budget expectations with the customer. So they cough up numbers, and then you show up there, and it's not at all the same thing. But
maybe to use a medical analogy, sometimes it's a symptom, right? Like, so Salesforce will come to us with a symptom, and sometimes a symptom can be addressed by something quick and easy, right?
Yep.
Like, drink Mr. Buckley's, and your throat will go perfectly back to normal. So sometimes it's a misled addressment of pain from a lot of people who are involved in the cycle, right? Even those bringing the deal or listening to it. It's like, we're going to solve this symptom, but a symptom is a symptom, right? Not a pain.
Correct.
I'd love to hear your feedback, Teddy, on that, because that's typically how it comes to us, is that there is a misappropriation and categorization of symptom versus pain. So not being able to get something might be a symptom, but I think you said it to a certain degree. The pain that's not actually the pain. Not being able to get something, it's just a symptom of something else. What is that causing?
And that's precisely what the pain funnel questioning is designed to expose. Is what they're telling us at the beginning a pain, or is it a symptom? Is it, and we have a term for symptom, it's a pain indicator. It's an indicator that there could be a pain. And so we ask questions that take us through 3 levels of discovery. First level, surface level. It tends to be logical. It's intellectual in nature. And so if we take that other example with the conversation with the CEO, it was brought up that they needed to do a better job getting data out of the ERP and spinning it in a way that the salespeople could be more targeted in their approach in sales, right? All right, so that particular statement is not a pain. It's not a pain. It's surface level. It's an indicator that maybe there's pain. What do you think the difference would be between it's an indication that there could be pain and it is a real pain? What would you think the difference would be between those two?
Well, I mean, usually if they describe a solution, you have to get them back to the real problem. If they say, I need this, tell me why you need this, or what is this going to do, or what's the underlying problem? Because they define a solution and it could be something entirely different.
Typically, a real pain would actually have like a factual result versus a feeling of something. So that's kind of maybe how my brain thinks in a certain degree. So
there's a dollar amount. There's a dollar amount associated.
There's a dollar amount, or
be,
there's a productivity or a KPI amount, or there's, you know, something, or maybe even if they don't know that, they can at least give you a geared fact-based versus feeling-based, because symptoms are also often, you know, observatory or perspective.
Yeah. I like what you're talking about there, fact-based or feeling-based. And in these conversations, too many salespeople, the conversation is all fact-based, and that's surface level. I push back that, you know, a dollar ROI value is real pain. Maybe. Maybe. It depends. How upset are they at a lack of result right now? And so when you look at that situation that we were talking about, where the CEO wants better information to the salespeople to take a more targeted approach to grow business, how badly does he want to grow business? I mean, if I'm talking to the CEO, I'd say, look, you got a really successful company. If you grow the business, you're going to have a whole bunch more headaches. You're going to have to hire more staff, carry more inventory, you know, build a bigger barn. Like, why would you want that headache? Why would you want to do that?
Well, in this case, I think he sold the business last year. He probably has an exit in 2 years.
Oh,
the bigger it grows it, the more money he's going to make.
Oh, interesting.
He didn't tell me that, but that's what I read. So that's probably what's happening. He's got a 3-year exit or something. So
potentially, but again, if we have really good rapport, right, and we're not pushing like a traditional salesperson, we want to get to the point where we can go beyond the surface level and get to the underlying reasons why. You know, improving ERP information is important. Get to the underlying reasons why expanding the business and being more targeted in the market is important. And we get to the third level down and we explore how the CEO feels about the current situation where the salespeople are not targeting well enough and they're not growing the business. How patient is he with that? Is he out of patience? Is he frustrated? How concerned is he? How worried is he? How excited is he if it's going to involve the capitalization of the business, right? And his earnout, his buyout is going to be higher. Mm-hmm. So we want to get to that level of conversation, but if we mess up the bonding and rapport, we'll never get there. Mm-hmm. And so the questions we're asking are moving from the surface level logic, data, information, and facts, and we're getting much more intimate. Again, look at the sideways funnel here. We're coming closer and closer together. We're becoming more and more intimate, and they're sharing more intimate information that they might not necessarily share with someone else. And we have one of the Sandler 49 rules is the problem that they give you at the top of the pain funnel is never the real problem. So it starts off with better ERP information, underlying reason, better targeted sales team, improve revenue. But even below that, why is improved revenue on the radar screen right now? Why is it important right now going into fourth quarter 2020? Why wasn't it important in 2019? Why is it important now? And we're getting closer to the real underlying compelling reason for the investment.
So would you go as far in the conversation and saying, where does this fit in your strategic planning, or why would this be a strategic investment? Like if your business plan for 3 years is such and such, where does that fit? Like you would go as far as that?
Why wouldn't I?
I'm just asking.
Yeah, for sure. I would. I do it all the time. We do it all the time, right? But we don't ask it in an intellectual way. Like, where does this fit in your hierarchy of strategic priorities? I'd be saying something along the line of, you know, Bruno, like you got to be dealing with a lot on your plate. I mean, I can just imagine. But, you know, like really though, like when you think about all the other things you've got stacked up on your list of things you got to do, and you're depending on others to come through and make it happen, where does this really rank? Like, let me ask you, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if you had 10 priorities right now, where would this be? 10 being absolute must do, hot, sizzling. Can't do anything until we get this done. I mean, where does it fit? 5, 6, 7? See, it's conversational, right? It's conversational. And we use a lot of emotional language, right? And it becomes real for people, and they become more comfortable, right? And sometimes I'll even add in, you know, when we sign up to help one of our clients accomplish some objectives like this, you know, we're in it 150%, but I got to share something with you. I've made the mistake in the past of being more committed to success than my client was. And that can end up not being a very good thing, right? What, Mr. CEO, why do you think if I on the outside are more committed to helping you and your team achieve the outcomes than they are, what do you think could go wrong with that? So I just need to get a sense of where this is in your order of priority so that I can align with that. So if this is a 5 out of 10, then I'll look at it as a 5 out of 10. So 5 out of 10 would require, you know, 50% attention, and I'll line up behind that, right? So
but typically, if it's a 5 out of 10, you should have a conversation as to when should we really start this project? Like, should it be something we talk about in 6 months, or nobody's going to work on a 5 out of 10.
Let me even fine tune it. If it's an 8 or less.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
we need to challenge
5 for sure, but like,
5, it's not even qualified.
We should be in a 8, 9, 10.
Absolutely. We need to be 9 or 10. 8 means we need to have more conversation. Hey guys, let's take I want to take a break at about 11, but it's 10:15. We're going to come back. I'll give you 6 minutes. Let's come back at 10:20. That'll give you 6 minutes, okay, for a quick bio break. And then we're going to wrap up the upfront contract, and we're going to move over into pain questioning. Sounds like you got a pretty good grasp from the upfront contract. But what I want to do with the upfront contract, I want to do some role play when we come back. We'll set up a scenario where you just got a lead from Salesforce. You're calling the prospect to book the first meeting, or you're sending an email to book the first meeting. Let's talk about what that upfront contract sounds like in reality, okay?
That's good.
So take 6. We'll be back here at 10.
All right.
So it looks like everybody's back. I'm not sure if Jeff is there or not. Camera's not on, but whatever. So I just pulled up a tool called the Upfront Contract Builder. It's tool 3.2. You should have that in your tool resources there in Sandler Online. So at the top, there's a space there for 3 contact people. And again, this is an electronic PDF that you can download. So, you know, you can actually type into it, right? Here's a place where you put their DISC profile. So my question would be, does anybody know how you can tell what the DISC profile is with about 80% certainty before you've ever met or spoken to someone?
I don't know the answer to that, but I've definitely been trying to be much more conscious of how people talk and what they feel. So very curious to hear what that is. Does anybody know in the team?
Anybody know? There's a plug-in for Google Chrome, the browser, the Chrome browser that you can use. It will scan the LinkedIn profile of the individual when you type in the name, and it will give you a profile based on the DISC model and advice as to how to approach that person. If you want to book a meeting, if you want to sell with that person, whatever it is you're trying to do, it'll give you different language to use, right from the salutation, a different phraseology to use. So if the person's a D, they like challenge. So use the word challenge. I understand, Mr. CEO, you've got, so-and-so explained to me that you've got some pretty aggressive objectives and some pretty serious challenges in the way of accomplishing those. And that's mirroring the style of that particular CEO, right?
What's the name of this plugin?
It's called Crystal, CRYSTAL, Knows, KNOWS.
Just quick note on that. We're doing that. Our marketing team, just for everybody's awareness, we scanned the 6,000 profiles that we have in LinkedIn from Salesforce employees. And so we have it by title and also by office. So we know in Boston, when we address them, we need to address them a specific way. When we address them in Chicago, we address them differently. So it's a very cool tool.
Using this tool?
Crystal Knows, yes. So we have this entire profile that Bruno Lalonde is using.
Cool. Very good. Very good.
So it's a paid tool?
I think it was yes, there was a cost for Bruno to use it. I don't know for individual use.
Yeah, there is a small fee for an individual user. It's not much. Okay, so getting below the disc. Okay, so now we're getting into the purpose of the meeting, right? So we want to be clear on that. And what's the objective that the prospect has in mind? Have you had a conversation? Have you socialized the purpose or objective of the meeting in advance with the buyer? And we need to do that. So are we thinking that, do we have some insight that maybe they're expecting us to make a presentation? We want to be aware of that so that when we establish the upfront contract, we want to consider what it is they're expecting in the meeting as well. And so I'll role model for you, I'll role play how we do that. What are the prospect's expectations in terms of what's going to take place in the meeting? What expectations do we have? Are our expectations that we're going to be doing pain discovery? Are we looking for information about their budget? Are we looking for information about the decision process? Where are we in the cycle? And what biggest fears might we have? What biggest fears might the prospect have, or what might be our biggest fears, and put those into the upfront contract in advance. So that tool is available to you. So I'm going to leave that up there, but I'm going to go to the whiteboard. I'll need to, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to move my computer. I'll use the camera on the computer to focus on the whiteboard just this time so that you can see what I'm going to put on the whiteboard. In the interest of a summary of what's on the tool, I'm going to give it to you in a graphical format that you can use to build your upfront contract for a first conversation with a lead that you got from Salesforce. So these are the structured elements of the upfront contract.
We still see the form though.
Yeah. Look on the camera.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Are we good?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the whiteboard now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So purpose, time, The Nubic role, in other words, what are you going to be doing to them in the meeting? The buyer's role. What do you need them to be doing in that first meeting when you call them and you lead? And we need to be able to identify and get agreement up front on the outcome. And I'm going to put outcomes, and we want to have a way in our upfront contract to describe a stop outcome and a go outcome. Alternative. What, alternatively, a stop, or alternatively, a go next step outcome. And sometimes, and I'll do this from time to time, I will actually, right up front in my upfront contract, I will share with them that if we accomplish the purpose and they feel comfortable taking a next step, this is what the next step would look like. So with my upfront contract, if I put a timeline on this, this is now, today, I'm having a conversation, setting up the upfront contract for an upcoming meeting, and maybe it's the meeting we're going to have right now. And so I'm taking the meeting, we'll call this meeting number 1, the purpose, the time, and all that stuff. And I'm also including, as part of this, what a next step would be. And I'm bringing that into the upfront contract, and I'm bringing the upfront contract into the conversation right now. So I'm giving my customer, my buyer, visibility way out into the future. So I'm sharing with them how the meeting would end. If the meeting ends well, then we're going to do X. Would you be okay with that? And maybe the next step would be, if the meeting goes well, then the next step would be to talk about the economics, investment, budgets, that kind of thing. But then again, if either one of us gets the impression at the end of this conversation that, you know, there really would be no value to you in taking things forward, we probably don't even need to have that budget conversation. Now, see, just having said that, we probably wouldn't even need to have that budget conversation. What do you think that would cause them to do that would help us in the conversation before budget, the pain conversation? Do you think they might be even more honest with us, give us more information if they want to go to the next step? Like if they want information from us, remember the price for information from us, price about budget, you have to pay a price, and the price you pay is giving us information. So we're basically saying that without using those words. We're setting up the rules of engagement. Okay, so get out a pen, type it, whatever, I don't care. Structure what you would say, call it a script. We don't want to go by scripts, but you know, write yourself up essentially what you would say in your upfront contract to establish the purpose of that first conversation with that lead, how much time you need, what you're going to be doing, what you need them to do, and what you're looking for in the way of outcomes. And remember, what we're trying to eliminate is the middle ground where you get off the call and they say, well, thank you very much. It was an interesting conversation. Let me think it over. Call me in 2 weeks. We call that TIO, thinking it over. We want to eliminate that and get a clear, hey, this was really good. Let's take it further, or it's not. And they've made a decision. Don't be fooled. They've made a decision. They just don't want to tell you if it's a negative outcome. They just don't want to tell you because they're fearful of what you're going to do to them. Okay, take a couple of minutes. I'll give you 3 minutes and I'll check in and see how you're doing. Okay, prepare your upfront contract. Any questions? Okay.
Prepare the contract for what? Sorry, maybe
the upfront contract. Okay, here's the scenario. You just got off our training session and you check your email. There's a lead from Salesforce. You called the Salesforce AE and they talked about the lead. they didn't have much information as usual, and you made a commitment to Salesforce, you're going to get in touch with that lead this afternoon. And instead of just calling them up and having a conversation, you're going to start your conversation with an upfront contract. What will that upfront contract sound like? Okay, let me check in and see how you're doing. Who needs more time? Anybody need some more time? Okay, I'm looking for a volunteer who can kick us off.
Would love to.
Okay, thanks, Luke.
But is everybody done? I don't want to be talking about
You
something.
know, go ahead. They can scribble on.
So I've been trying to practice with the tool given in the session. So, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to connect. I hope you still have the 30 minutes like we agreed. Naturally, you need to understand how Salesforce will help you accomplish your goals. Obviously, I need to learn a bit about your current and future desired state. Typically, if we do not see if we don't seem to have a fit, you're free to tell me that you don't want to continue. Otherwise, I'll need to schedule a future 90-minute call for a discovery and reverse demo of your current tools.
Okay, let's hear another one. We're going to go through a bunch of them, and then we'll kind of, regroup what we're hearing and look for some opportunities to take it up another level. So,
Well, I can try.
yeah, go ahead.
So, Terry, thanks for your time. We've been doing a lot of those first meeting, and typically the way it goes is I learn about your business. I tell you a bit more about ours. Typically you take about a 30-minute period. Towards maybe 20-minute in a discussion. I might ask some question to better understand your situation, and we'd be at the stage where we'll decide if it makes sense to continue our discussion, or if there's a good fit with our organization, or in the opposite, we'll agree together on the next step. I might ask you other question about the budget, your commitment in this investment, and dig deeper into the thing. Something like this.
Okay.
I mean, more practice, but
no, for sure. I mean, this is the time to try it on, and try it out before going live. You know what I mean? So,
I kind of cheated, but I did one yesterday because I had a conversation yesterday. Yeah. It was not a first call though, but it was within the cycles, and so the objectives. Like I had a slide, and basically we went over it before the meeting started. So. I confirmed the duration was 90 minutes for our meeting today, and everybody agreed on that. Obviously we're here to answer questions that Engrain, that was the customer that we were talking to, may have about the implementation. For Nubik, our objective is to understand the scope and understand and scope the effort required for the implementation of Financial Force at Engrain. So we're going to be asking you some questions. The objective is to provide an implementation budget to Engrain, and then I gave them some visibility on the future steps. So once we have the implementation budget, we're going to have to get their approval on the budget, and if they do so, we will get to a statement of work stage.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Let's hear another one.
That easy.
Hey, Terry, thanks for reaching out. Great to hear from you as a Salesforce partner. I'd love to explain what Nubik does well and what we do specifically to help address your possible needs. I'd love to hear what those needs are. So in a 30-minute discussion, I think we can get some exchange of dialogue to see if there are matches and fits. And typically, I would give my feedback to Salesforce as surely you would as well, since we're being introduced virtually that way. Look forward to booking a call with you. Talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Who have we not heard from? I wasn't keeping track with check marks on my list. So.
I'd like to schedule a 30-minute call with you in the coming days. The purpose will be to better understand your needs, pains, and understand your expectation in terms of working with an implementation partner. My goal will be to ensure that we're the right fit for you and the team. And if we are, to continue the process with the objective of producing an implementation plan that covers timeline, cost, and commitments. How does it sound? Would you mind confirming your availability?
Okay. All right. Good job, everybody. Is there anyone else that wanted to try theirs on, or would this be a good time to maybe just, have some discussion about what we heard in general? Okay, if there's no other volunteers, let's just think about all the different examples of the upfront contract that we heard. Any common themes that you heard through each of our examples? Anybody recognize any common themes?
Well, we all
They need
talked
to
about
understand,
time.
yeah, the time. They
Yep.
need to understand better the objectives that the
Right.
customer is looking for.
Yep.
That was everywhere.
Yep.
Not a lot of, not being
Yeah.
afraid to get the no.
Yeah.
I didn't hear a lot of that.
I would ask, what about others? Did you kind of feel the same way, that maybe the exit clause would be something that we should maybe focus on just a little bit more and make it more clear?
Yeah.
I find that when, in my first couple of years actually, doing the upfront contract, I had a tendency, as I observe all salespeople who are new to the upfront contract, I too had a tendency to go quickly over the outcomes part here, outcomes on the whiteboard at the bottom. One or two things will happen. Either we'll figure out a next step, or maybe we don't need to go any further with it. You okay with that? And what I've learned to do is make it more conversational. Draw that part out, put some different seasoning on it, right? Because they hear it, I'm saying it, I'm thinking of it as in 100% terms. I express it quickly, and they only get it at 10%. And so what we've learned over time as we develop a higher level of mastery with the upfront contract is it's much more effective when we can make that part conversational and engage with them and get them to actually, come back to us conversationally and agree that that makes sense. And I know I've done it when the person on the other side says, no problem, I'm totally comfortable with that. In fact, I really appreciate you saying that. I wish other people would do that. And then I know, okay, they get it, right? Okay, so when we think about what our objective is for that next step, our next step, if we've got a lead and we're taking that lead and going to have a conversation with them, let's come back to the purpose. I heard purpose expressed different ways, but really, if you think about it, what's your number one objective? What's the purpose that we want to accomplish in that first real conversation with the lead? What do we need to be doing from a sales point of view?
Qualify them.
Qualify.
What does that mean, qualify?
See if they're a good fit in terms of the problems they're going to expose to us.
Okay, so problems. Okay, what about the problems? What is it that we would need to hear in terms of the problems?
Well, the impact, the priority.
Reveal the pains of
Impact, priority.
What happens if they do nothing?
Oh, okay.
understand where they are on their journey themselves.
Why would they do this now?
Great. I was expecting to hear whether we have a solution fit that matches the problem. I heard a little bit of that come out in one or more of the upfront contracts. I don't want to dwell on it, but I just want to make the point that determining solution fit, you can do that a little bit in the pain conversation, but that is not the purpose of the pain conversation. The purpose of the pain conversation is to get below, take that problem that they say they have, which is the reason why they're looking at a potential solution, and we need to drill down 3 levels, 1, 2, 3, to get to the real underlying reason.
Yeah, Terry, can I just make an observation? And it's something that I've just been sort of reflecting on through today's conversation. It's kind of dawned on me a little bit. I think that in the past, what I've done a lot is assess, my prospect for a fit for Salesforce as a whole. But I find that right now, what this is really sort of highlighting for me is the need to really assess the fit for Newbig, like as an implementation partner. So I think you're right. I do think we put the solution, a technical solution fit. I know I do. The technical solution fit sort of up front and foremost. And that might gloss over, right, some of the other like deeper underlying reasons, the commercial, the business reasons. Because I mean, it's hard for Salesforce not to be a fit. Technically, like you can do pretty much anything. So if you go by that, like most clients, you'll end up sort of saying, yeah, we can help you, but maybe by jumping into that so early, then that muddies the water and that's one coming out.
Unless you wanna like if you like, I'll give you an example. 4 weeks ago, I had a call. I speak to that lady and she explains the problem they're having and she explains some of the pains and the impact and everything. And she goes on talking about the fact that they use an ERP today that has the feature that she would want, but they didn't turn it on for some reason. And this, what they would want to do is a massive project in terms of investment for a small business like this. So basically saying like this, why would you go with this, which is going to be 50K, where this thing exists and what you have already, like totally a bad fit, and there was no reason to do a second call with them.
Yeah. What we're trying
I'm not gonna drag it on just to do a next step. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
No way this is gonna fly.
Yeah, it's not real. And what we're doing in the pain step is we're determining how real is this opportunity? How real is this lead? It's not
but it's a solution fit to a certain extent. Like if you, yes, I can solve your problem, but budget wise, there's no way it's gonna fly and the effort required. So you do kind of a solutioning fit at some point.
I think, Bruno, that's what it is. You qualify it. Right?
Yeah, like some point.
Yeah, but at some point you bring in the fit, like saying this is overkill for what you want to do in both in terms of budget, licenses, plus the fact that you already have this on site. Like why would you go external? Why don't you look at what you have already? Because
makes total
sense. At some point, somebody's going to say this is what they want to do later on in the stage, and we're going to lose it anyway. So.
Yeah. So we have a conversational model that we use to uncover that kind of stuff, right? And it's the pain funnel. So I'm not going to bore you with all the questions. I'll give you a few of them because you've already looked at that, or you're going to go back after this session and look at those. But the first question, now that we've done the upfront contract, right? So, the purpose today is to, get to discover and learn a little bit more about your situation, to figure out whether or not, this is something that we can help you with, or whether you'd even want our help. And so I need to ask you some questions. You'll answer my questions. You have questions for me. We'll go back and forth. And at the end of the conversation, let's just figure out, and let's draw a line in the sand. Is this something we should keep working on together, or maybe we should part company? I'm okay either way. Hey, yes, let's move forward would be great, but it might not be reality. So if you're okay with that, let's take 30 minutes and let's do that. Okay, great. So they agree. So my next question, or the next thing I'm going to say, brings, maybe we got from Salesforce that, give me a pain indicator, quality of tracking info. So, I'm led to understand that one of your key interests is what Salesforce could do for you in the way of improving the quality of your tracking information in your dashboard. So I don't know that would be the right fit or not. Again, need to ask you some questions. So why don't you just tell me more? Tell me more about the situation. And that's just a very broad, wide, pain funnel is wide, opening question to get them talking. And let them lead us to where they want to go. But we already expect that the answer to that question is going to be fluffy, it's going to be general, not very specific. So we've already planned ahead of time, if we need it, might not, but what our next question is. Anybody know what the next question is after tell me more? To narrow it down and get a little bit more specific, anybody remember?
And then
Can you give me some examples? And maybe be a little bit more specific. So they're giving us more information. They're starting to narrow it down, right? Then we get in, now we're getting into, this is all surface level. We're going to start to transition to underlying reasons. How long has that been going on? Like our salespeople just aren't targeted enough. They're just making calls out into the market, and we're not really lining up our salespeople with better qualified situations. So we need better quality information out of our ERP. Oh, okay. All right. Well, so how long has that been going on? Well, about 150 years. Oh, I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's been going on for 150 years. Why would they do anything now? Or they might say, yeah, it just happened yesterday. We've only been looking at it for 20 minutes. So I'm going, okay, they've only been looking at it for 20 minutes. Why would they do something now? Which causes me to ask more questions, right? And so I want to know if it's been going on for some period of time, what have you done so far? Well, we tried this or we tried that. Well, you know, why do you think that might not have worked? Why do you think that didn't work? And so I've got reasons why I'm asking all these questions, right? What's been the impact to the business in not being able to target those accounts more precisely? Can you quantify that in any way? And get them talking about all of that. And now I want to transition down to the third level as they're starting to open up and give me more information. And I'm really narrowing down now, and I'm getting justification from them. I'm not justifying to them why Salesforce would be good or why Nubic would be good. I'm asking questions to get them to justify to me that I should continue to pay attention to this situation. And that's what I mean by they have to pay us information to get our attention or keep our attention in this. So, you know, as they're talking about all this, my tonality is changing from somewhat objective up here, you know, there may or may not be a fit. And as they're giving me more intimate information, I'm now sounding really curious, and I'm sounding like, in transactional analysis, which we'll get to in the advanced stuff, I'm coming from the nurturing parent mindset with nurturing parent tonality, and I'm going, oh, wow, really? Whew. I mean, I got to wonder, I mean, given it's been almost a year, you've been struggling with this, you've tried a couple of different things, it hasn't worked, and you've got that pressure from the investors. I got to ask you, how are you feeling about the situation right now? And I'm just having like a really warm, this is where I get really close and warm and sound very, you know, caring, right? And then they open up even more, and that's when we really figure things out in terms of, okay, what's the real underlying reason? So we find out that if he can't raise revenue, the real driver behind this is he will not get further investment in 2021. So he has to go back to the board or to the investors with a strategy and a plan that will demonstrate to them, you know, this is solid enough for continued investment. That's a real situation, by the way, that I've got going right now with another software company. And so I want to get to that underlying reason. So I want to know what's the real underlying reason that will compel them to make the investment. Where is it on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of its importance? And I'm asking questions to get the evidence as to how important it is. And as they're sharing with me the answers to my questions, what are they doing in their own head in terms of ranking it in terms of importance? they're ranking it in their head in terms of importance as well, because when they're talking to me, they're also reinforcing that in their own mind. Importance, and finally, what is their commitment to actually address the problem? And so it started off with, you know, ERP, blah, 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 and really it's about getting further investment in the company. So which problem is worthy of the investment? Getting better data from ERP, just as an example, right? And I know that's not your real situation, but just as an example, hypothetically, or is the stronger rationale for making the investment to improve the ERP data, is it based more on the rationale regarding getting further investment in the company? Which one has the more power? And so the stronger the pain, the bigger the pain, the higher the importance, the higher the priority, the more the commitment, the more the investment.
Terry, to add to this, when we discuss like client okayness, is there ever a risk of pushing them so hard on the pain that we drop their okayness, where they're basically beating themselves up over how crappy of a situation that they're in, that it discourages them fully? Like, what is there a risk?
That's what I want. That's what I want. I want them to feel okay with me. I'm asking questions. I'm not pushing them anywhere. I'm just asking questions. They can decide how they answer. And, you know, doing a really good pain funnel, I might do one every 8 months, a really good one. I'm just kidding. But when you're doing a really good one, you'll see their body language will change. It will change, especially when you get down in here about the impact, and they're recognizing, they're staring the problem in their face. If they feel okay in the green zone with the problem, why would they make an investment to solve it? I want to ask questions so I can observe how much in the red zone are they not okay with the problem. If they can live with the problem, then they're just in curiosity mode. There's no commitment. They're in curiosity mode. And I want to separate the curiosity seekers who just want to get some front-end information. They dropped an email lead over to Salesforce. They were curious. Salesforce didn't do a great job qualifying. They get us involved. We get into a conversation. They're still curious. We misread them. And then we provide too much information, leading all the way to a proposal. It's in the pipeline. It's never going to close. So what we're doing is we're exposing any reason why this deal won't close way out in time right now, and figuring out whether or not we can address it. And if we can't address it, and they're not going to make a commitment to solve the problem, then what's the point? And if they're highly committed to solve the problem, that's when, okay, well, you know, everybody says that. I take that. I get it. But before we jump too quickly, Mr. CEO, maybe we should have a conversation. We can do it now, or we can schedule another meeting just to talk about what might be involved in terms of what an implementation would look like. And then you could lay out, we'd talk about the economics of it, what the investment would look like in terms of time, money, resources, what we'd be doing on our end, who else might be involved that you'd want to run this investment by, just to kind of get their feedback. You know, our approach would require us also to get information from anybody else who has a stake in the success of this, to get their perspective on it, so that what we do design for you is going to satisfy all parties. And so here, I'm setting a little mini upfront contract that if we go far enough, I'm going to want to interview other people. This is not about you and me, and I can't talk to anyone else. Part of our process will require us to do that further discovery through our, you know, our upfront analysis, right?
Another thing I'm curious about, Terry, is whenever you, obviously Danny procured your services for us. I'm curious, when were you made aware that there's pain enough, or what was the pain that you sensed and got out of Danny whenever you realized he would be committing to, you know, actually doing?
I just took an order. He was already sold. I just wrote the order.
I'm curious, genuinely, what do you remember?
Of course I remember, because you know, I'm relating to it in every session we do because Danny and Camille hired us to help you guys do a better job expanding and harvesting the relationship with Salesforce. And one of the strategies to do that more effectively is to demonstrate to Salesforce that you guys are pros and they can feel more confident giving leads to you guys than some other partner they could give it to, because you're competing with other partners and they want to see, you know, they want to see leads come through to fruition and score. And so by using the Sandler approach, you will raise their level of confidence in you. You will be more like them and a stronger partner with them, right? So,
Danny, does that sound about what you were feeling?
100%. And then based on what Bruno shared earlier today, it seems to be working. So this is exciting.
So good.
yeah.
Hey, I have a 11 o'clock commitment.
Yeah, we got to go.
So
Hey,
Okay,
Terry,
guys, your homework, if you haven't done it, go back, review the upfront contract material, the pain material, get your testing done, and do a preview on the budget material and come into the session prepared with your questions on budget. We're going to kick it off in a breakout. What did you learn about budget and what questions do you have about the material on budget so that we can really focus on it? And if you have any other questions about the pain stuff, bring that to our next session also. Okay?
quick question, Terry.
Thanks.
I mean,
Go ahead.
you know, it looks easy when you said it. It looks easy, you know, listening to the video. But obviously, in a good example, it's not easy to have the upfront contract in a conversational way. What would you suggest in terms of practice of getting that message, or without having a script but making it easier on us? So what's the learning path? How can I improve this?
Preparation. So before you make the call, think about what the upfront contract is going to look like. Make some notes. And I can show you my journal where I do my notes for my upfront contract before every sales call, right? You know, how am I going to phrase it? Just a couple of bullet points. And, you know, I'm walking around with my earbuds, I glance down. And start doing upfront contracts among yourselves internally. So Danny, if I'm one of the guys and I want to have 20 minutes with you or 10 minutes, I'm going to do an upfront contract. Hey, Danny, I need 10 minutes. Here's the reason, here's the purpose. I want to ask you some questions about. What I need from you is some advice on, right? And I'm going right through the upfront contract. And at the end of it, you and I can make a decision. I got some ideas as to how to play it. And at the end, we'll make a decision. Do we go left or do we go right? And that gives you, Danny, some insight into what's going on. Like, why am I spending 10 minutes with this guy?
I like that.
So do it internally. Practice it internally, right?
I got to jump. Thank you, Terry.
Okay. See you guys. Have a good couple of weeks.
Bye.
Hey, great stuff.
Okay. See
Awesome
you.
stuff
Bye.
as always. See you, folks.
Bye.